Okay, hi, I'm going to start with part 2 on growing your assets with intellectual property. So again, for those who would want to benefit from this talk, please come in front and join us here. We're going to move on now to commercialization of IP. So we talked about intellectual properties just now, and then Dr. Paula Pat actually mentioned on how you could actually secure your contents, especially online. Yeah, so that was an interesting session on where he shared about the watermarks and the DRM. Okay, now we go on to how do you actually commercialize. So this actually is supposed to come a bit before. So when you commercialize and what Dr. Polapot session would be that would be beneficial for you when you're actually commercializing your IP. So what do you actually need to have when you want to commercialize your intellectual property? So can you commercialize your ideas? Well, yes. Then again, it depends on what level is your creation and what stage is it at or what background do you have? Yeah. So, but usually you can start commercializing if you have a ready product. It's different if you perhaps have you are an outsourced editor or let's say an author for certain companies. So they've commissioned you to do works for them for over a certain period of years. So that might be slightly different when it comes to commercializing. You actually work together with the publishers to create ideas, and then they actually help you to reduce it into material form. But usually when it comes to commercializing, there needs to already be a ready product. For example, a published book. It can be on any platform. So then you can actually start to commercialize. So, but why then do you need to actually commercialize? Yeah. So commercializing actually helps with visibility and also increase the value and sustainability of the intellectual property and the subject matter. So let's say if you have created a book, a certain title, and you want this to actually continue or remain for a certain number of years. So for you to for it to actually remain, it needs to be commercialized. It needs to be visible. And who has the rights to commercialize? Normally, yes, the owners and licensors of the intellectual property, depending on the nature of the relationships and the rights that has been given to you. So especially if you're a licensor, but you're given rights to certain geographical area, let's say the Asian region, for example, and you have the rights to sub-license, then you have the rights to commercialize in that way. Excuse me. And when do you actually start to commercialize? It depends again on the nature of the intellectual property and the background of the intellectual property. For example, there are types of IPs which are still in the R&D or research and development stage that can already be commercialized and developed further. And there would be collaborations made or cross-licensings that might happen. But I think when it comes to the publishing industry, then usually it would be when the product is already ready or towards completion, and that's when you can actually start commercializing the intellectual property. And how do you actually commercialize? It depends on the potential of the intellectual property. It does not have to be just sold to bookstores or libraries, yeah? So these are some examples of the various modes of commercialization that might happen, especially in the publishing industry. Outright sale, it can be through your literary agents, your publicists, the libraries, the bookstores, online, offline, and the retailers. And you can actually go through licensing, quite straightforward. And the scope of the licensing is a different matter. You can actually start to limit it, and it depends on the geographical area. It can depend on the certain timeline, and also in respect of certain rights. So you can also limit it. You don't want to actually include secondary rights. Secondary rights nowadays we have, it can be any of these: audio, ebook, digital books, films, translations, merchandising, serial rights, broadcasting, film rights, film rights. So you can decide to limit, and we don't know in the future what other types of rights that may come. 3D, for example, yeah? So when it comes to commercialization, depending on the nature of your intellectual property and the potential that you have for your IP, you might not know yet at that moment. So it all depends on how you actually want to move forward. Actually, this session is not legal per se, but it gives you an idea on how to actually get your IP out there and not leave it stagnant just as a book, for example, just as a painting or just as a photo that you've actually displayed on Instagram. Yeah? Okay, so nowadays we have different modes of commercialization of for your copyrighted materials. For example, like books, we have Amazon, we have iBooks. Okay, those are online bookstores. You have Blurb, you have Lulu, and even for photographs, you don't have to just, like I mentioned, it doesn't have to remain stagnant as your photo. Let's say if you had a good photo and you found out that it's been shared multiple times, you could actually sell it to, for example, Shutterstock, and that could give you visibility. Let's say if you give, you actually submit or lodge in certain photos, but you have plenty of other photos that you own, yeah? So you could actually give rights for that, and that creates your visibility as a photographer or in that particular area. So these are various modes on how you actually commercialize and increase visibility. So it goes hand in hand on how you actually want to create visibility first if you're starting up, or you want to actually maintain the traffic or maintain the visibility that you have, or you just want to actually increase revenue. So it goes depending on your the purpose. But it can actually go both ways. Once you have visibility, then immediately the revenue would also start coming in. And also for paintings, for example, these are some platforms where you could actually sell your art, and that would actually start generating revenue through these platforms without you having to go through any agents or through any galleries, or before you even start getting that visibility, which might take a number of years. Yeah, as long as you have followers, a few followers, that would already start by word of mouth. That would actually increase your visibility in that area and your expertise. So these are some examples. So this is another form. Just now, when Dr. Polaport mentioned, there are times when you want to actually restrict the screenshots. Let's say someone has taken a screenshot and you put a watermark, or perhaps you want to only put a watermark on the second time. You want to actually allow fair use. You want to allow people to share it. So what is Creative Commons? Creative Commons is actually a method for sharing your intellectual properties with people without receipt of royalties. So this is where you can actually put in your intellectual property, whatever it may be, for people to actually share freely with reference to you. But they don't have to pay anything. So for anyone who wants to know what types of IPs are available for you to use freely without having to actually get permission, because it might take a longer time, a longer process, there are intellectual properties which are Creative Commons. So you can just actually abide by the purpose and the conditions attached to those IPs, and you can actually already use them. So this is a method for you to also gain visibility. So let's say I'm starting up. How do I actually get everyone to know me? So this is one type where you could actually get people. I'm going to just let them share my initial 3 works, for example. And from that, people know your name. People can already see you. And you actually, and then from that, it already increases your traffic and increases your visibility. So these are some types of modes or approaches that you can consider on how to actually expand your IP. So not make it stagnant in that just one form. Okay, before I go to this. So I love reading. And one of my favorite books is, I can say, Harry Potter. I like to use this as an example always because it's fantastic. How it started as just one single book called The Philosopher's Stone or The Sorcerer's Stone, depending on where you're from. It became 7 editions. Yeah? So you have the Philosopher's Stone, you have the Chamber of Secrets, you have the Prisoner of Azkaban, you have the Goblet of Fire, Order of Phoenix, Half-Blood Prince, and then you have the Deathly Hallows. 7 books, yeah? Starting from just one single novel, yeah? So, and as you all know, all these books have been converted or translated into films. And not only that, it's been translated into 100 types of different languages, all from a single idea. So this is the extent on how you can grow your intellectual property. But if you ask me, how do I have this, how do I actually make my IP become like Harry Potter? I can't possibly tell you. Maybe J.K. Rowling even didn't know that it could actually come this far. But it all depends on what approach you take to gain visibility and what are the tweaks that you've made to actually increase visibility and the likings towards your work. Yeah? So you get that through feedback sometimes, or through your agents, through your publishers. Yeah? So if you have potential, definitely you would see that. And mainly when it comes to book, I believe it would come through word of mouth reviews. I understand, like in the United Kingdom, in the libraries, as a kid, if you walk in, the librarians themselves would always recommend books, and they're always keen to actually look for new books. Oh, you should read this, or this is popular, or this is interesting, and they would know the contents. And from that, it actually gains attraction, and always the books are always rented out or borrowed. So from that, it actually expands. I believe that is how Harry Potter started as a children's book. If the libraries there might not be as vibrant as the libraries here, but that is where we can actually start, yeah? Gaining that visibility. So if the content is good, people would just continue coming and coming. So Harry Potter, again, through films, merchandising, theme parks, and you also have the spin-offs. The story continues. Like you have, these are books from the book. So if you read Harry Potter, you have Harry goes to his classes, and there are some books that are referred or mentioned in the book. You have the Tales of the Beadle, the Bard, and these have actually translated into a different book. So you can actually go to the bookstore and buy these books now, which Harry Potter actually read in his classes. And you have Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, another spin-off. And this spin-off is actually translated, or it's converted also into a movie, which will be coming out this year in November. So if you can see the value of how, from that single idea, if you have that creative process and it just goes, it could actually generate all these type of other intellectual properties, new IP, and new types and new income, and potential is tremendous. So yeah, Fantastic Beasts, even that is translated into a movie coming out in November. And you have Quidditch. Even Quidditch itself is now a sport. If not, a lot of you might not know, but it's a popular sport played in the Ivy League universities. So even Quidditch, if you know, that's a sport where Harry Potter played. He has a broom, so they actually fly around, something like a wizard football. So there was a book as well in the Harry Potter book. So there's this spin-off as well called Quidditch Through the Ages. And if you have from that, we all might know that J.K. Rowling, with a partner, is coming out with a play in July. So the story does continue through The Cursed Child, parts 1 and 2. And this is not a novel. is going to be a play, a theatre, and it's going to be launched or played in July this year, and the scripts are actually being sold. Yeah. So the scripts, bookings for the scripts have been opened, and they are selling actually the scripts. These are not even the novels. The scripts to the play in July. So Harry Potter, the Cursed Child. And like you have since online right now, technology is a major part of our daily life. They've actually converted the story, and they've continued expanding the storyline through Pottermore, a website for Harry Potter fans. So there are a lot more intellectual properties, a lot more to Harry Potter itself in Pottermore. So you have the illustrations, the background stories. So in one type of IP, one type of idea, it has generated so much. Yeah, as you all know, the merchandising, the wands being sold, the name of the drinks, butterbeer, and the Bertie bots and the chocolate frogs. You know, there's so much out there. So yes, there is a lot of copyright, but there is also a lot of trademark rights there. Yeah, especially when it comes to merchandising. So this is one of the most interesting intellectual properties or copyrights for me of all time, and one of the greatest examples that you could actually ride on. Okay, we don't have Wi-Fi, or I can't access the Wi-Fi, but this is something that I'd like to share with all of you as well. Especially since technology is moving so fast, and God knows what's coming out, because this is a few of the two examples that we might see in the near future. It's already out, actually. It's being sold. 3D pens. It's called the 3D Doodler, but I can't access. Okay, so what is this 3D pen? It's actually a pen that can actually draw. So if you're an architect, you can actually immediately draw out, and it becomes in a 3D form. And it's really interesting if you actually go and YouTube it. This is where we are at in technology, and you have 3D imagery. Amazing. They want to actually change the way you learn, with the way you educate, the way you get entertained through 3D. It's not just 3D movies. You're not sitting down, but it's actually, if I'm on the stage right now, I can get a whale coming out from the stage. So that is the change that we are seeing in our environment right now. So I'm looking forward to all of this, and I don't know how we can actually move as an industry, maybe from Malaysia starting to collaborate, and you can translate even what you have in a book through a 3D, and that would be magnificent. Yeah, okay, so that's the examples that I have for commercialization. And I think the part when it comes to legal is how you actually secure your rights. So it's not just actually, a lot of people think it's just downloading a simple template online, but there are a lot of things on how you actually approach a certain arrangement. Yeah, there are drafts out there which are drafted in favor of certain parties. So it might not be favoring you, especially if you don't understand the content. So be careful when you're using any templates, and if you don't understand any of the contents, it's best to actually seek legal advice, especially if you're signing it. And when you're going to any international forums or exhibitions and you're dealing with third parties, sharing your ideas, also it's recommended that you have a confidentiality agreement or an NDA, non-disclosure agreement, so to avoid other people from using your ideas. Yeah, so those are some recommendations, and yeah, I hope to see the industry grow. I hope to have questions as well. Is there any questions? Okay, I'll be around for a while if there is any questions. Okay, and thank you. Thank you.